was 23 when I first confused chemistry for destiny. Her name doesn't matter. What matters is this. I believed that the way my heart accelerated when she walked into a room was evidence. Evidence of fate, evidence of truth, evidence that the universe had conspired to deliver me to this exact moment with this exact person under the tyranny of these exact feelings. I was wrong. Not about her, about everything I thought love was. See, here's what they don't tell you in the movies, in the songs, in the billion-dollar greeting card industry that turns February 14th into a global performance of romantic theater. Feelings are the least reliable narrators of your own life story. Feelings are weather. Commitment is climate. Feelings are the getaway car. Commitment is the 8-month planning of the heist itself. Feelings will betray you on a Tuesday afternoon for no reason at all. And here's the vault they don't want you to crack open, the truth they'd hidden behind a century of Hollywood endings and serotonin-drunk poetry. Real love is not something you feel your way into. It's something you choose your way through. My name isn't important.
What's important is that I spent a decade chasing the high of falling in love. As if love were something you stumbled into, powerless, victim to the gravitational pull of another person's eyes. And then one winter, standing in front of a bathroom mirror after my third soulmate had left, I realized something. I had been robbing the wrong bank. The real heist, it wasn't stealing someone's heart. It was liberating my own mind from the prison of feeling as truth.
Welcome to the freedom sphere.
If you're here, you're part of the crew. And like all great crews, we don't break into banks for the money. We break into ideas for the truth. Today's heist is personal. Today, we're breaching the vault of love itself. Not love as Hallmark sells it, not love as dopamine delivers it, but love as philosophy demands it, as a choice, a practice, a rebellion against the tyranny of transient emotion. You see, they've taught you that love is a feeling that happens to you, a lightning strike, a chemical avalanche, a cosmic accident. And in that teaching, they've stripped you of your power. Because if love is only a feeling, then you are only its hostage. When the feeling fades, and neuroscience promises it will fade, you believe the love itself has died. But what if I told you that the feeling was never the point? What if the real love story begins exactly where the feelings start to flicker? What if commitment, not passion, is the ultimate act of freedom? This is our thesis, our blueprint, our master plan. Love is not an emotion. Love is a philosophical choice. And that choice is the most radical act of liberation available to the human spirit. We're going to prove it with neuroscience, with Stoic philosophy, with quantum physics, with the wisdom of mystics who knew this truth 3,000 years before fMRI machines could photograph it. And then, like every proper heist, we're going to give you the tools to execute it yourself. Let's begin.
First, the ancient angle. Because nothing we're discovering is new, we've just been distracted from it. Rewind to Athens, 400 BCE. Plato sits in the agora, surrounded by young men drunk on the idea of eros, passionate, consuming, body-to-body love. The kind of love that burns bright and fast, that the poets immortalize, that feels like proof of the god's existence. And Plato tells them, you're chasing shadows on a cave wall. Eros is beautiful. Eros is necessary, but Eros is not the highest form of love. That honor, that belongs to philia and agape. Philia, the love of deep friendship, loyalty, chosen kinship. The love that says, I see who you are, I see who you are becoming, and I choose to walk beside you, not because my biology compels me, but because my values align with yours. Agape, the unconditional, volitional love. The love that does not ask, what do I feel, but rather, what does the other need? The love that is verb, not noun, action, not state of being. The Greeks understood something we've forgotten in our dopamine-saturated age. Feelings are the beginning of the conversation, not the end. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they had a framework for this. They called it the dichotomy of control. You cannot control whether you feel love for someone on any given day. You can control whether you act with love toward them regardless. This distinction is everything. The Stoics didn't say, suppress your feelings. They said, recognize that feelings are external to your true self. Your character, your choices, that's the only thing you truly own. So when Epictetus says, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly, he's not talking about passive acceptance. He's talking about radical responsibility, radical choice. Now, let's rob the neuroscience vault for a moment. Because your brain, magnificent as it is still running software designed for the savannah, not the suburb. When you fall in love, here's what's actually happening. Your ventral tegmental area floods your system with dopamine. Your caudate nucleus lights up like a jackpot machine. Norepinephrine spikes, serotonin drops, interestingly to levels similar to those found in people with OCD, which is why new love makes you obsess.
Hands reach for a gift.
This cocktail, it lasts 12 to 18 months, maximum. You know what we call that period? The honeymoon phase. You know what we should call it? The biological bait and switch. And here's the beautiful, terrible truth they don't teach you. Every long-term couple that tells you they're still in love after 20 years, they're not riding the same chemical high you felt in month 3. They're riding something far more powerful. They're riding commitment. They're riding the accumulated evidence of 10,000 small choices to stay, to repair, to choose the other person's growth alongside their own. They've alchemized feeling into philosophy, chemistry into character. And that is the heist we're here to master.
Every bow leads me back to you.
Let's go deeper into the labyrinth where feeling and philosophy diverge. Because this is where most people get lost. This is where the relationship ends, not because love died, but because they mistook the map for the territory. The first corridor, the myth of the one. Have you ever noticed that the concept of soulmates is a brilliant marketing strategy, but terrible philosophy? Think about it. If there is exactly one person out of 8 billion who is your person, and your happiness depends on finding them, then, 1, you are hostage to cosmic randomness. 2, you abdicate all responsibility for the relationship's success. After all, if they're the one, it should be easy, right? 3, the moment difficulty arises, you have a convenient exit. Maybe they weren't the one after all. This is not love. This is superstition. The Stoics would call it an external good, basing your happiness on something outside your control. The neuroscientists would call it confirmation bias, seeking evidence to support a pre-existing belief while ignoring contradictory data. I call it a trap. Here's the truth they don't want you to know, because it doesn't sell movies or diamonds. There is no one. There are many people you could build a beautiful life with, given aligned values, mutual respect, willingness to grow, and the choice, big daily, unglamorous, non-cinematic choice, to stay. You don't find the right person. You choose someone, and then you both become the right people for each other. The second corridor, the weaponization of authenticity. Here's a phrase that's destroyed more relationships than infidelity. I need to be true to my feelings. Sounds empowering, doesn't it? Sounds like radical honesty, like self-respect. But let's decode it. When someone says, I need to be true to my feelings, what they're often saying is, my feelings are the ultimate authority, and if I don't feel like loving you today, then I have moral permission to leave. This is not authenticity. This is emotional tyranny. Because feelings, remember, are weather. Would you cancel a wedding because it rained? Would you abandon a garden because you didn't feel like watering it on a Tuesday? Or would you recognize that commitment means showing up especially when the feelings are absent?
The philosopher Simone de Beauvoir wrote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." Let me adapt that. One is not born, but rather becomes a lover. And becoming requires practice, discipline, the willingness to act against your feelings when those feelings would sabotage your values. You want to know what's truly authentic? Choosing to love someone on the days you don't feel it. That's when you discover who you actually are. The third corridor, the quantum nature of commitment. Let's get strange for a moment. Let's talk about quantum mechanics. In quantum physics, there's a principle called superposition. The idea that a particle exists in all possible states until it is observed. The act of observation collapses the probability wave into a single reality. Now, apply that to love. Before you commit, the relationship exists in superposition. It could be anything. It could end tomorrow. It could last decades. It's all futures at once, blurred and undefined. The act of commitment, of choosing, is the observation that collapses the wave. You are not discovering what the relationship is. You are creating what it becomes through the act of choosing it. This is not metaphor. This is ontology. Your choice doesn't reflect reality. Your choice constitutes reality. Every mystic tradition knows this. The Buddhists call it dependent origination. All phenomena arise from causes and conditions, and you are part of that causal chain. The Kabbalists speak of tzimtzum, the divine contraction that creates space for free will. Even the existentialists, Sartre, Camus, hammer this home. You are condemned to be free. Your essence is not fixed. You make yourself through your choices. So, when you choose to commit to another person, you are not submitting to your feelings. You are authoring your own existence. You are saying, in a universe of infinite possibility, I am printing this reality. I am minting this life. That is power. That is freedom. That is the ultimate heist, stealing your life back from the randomness of feeling and designing it according to your own values. The fourth corridor, the paradox of freedom through constraint. Here's where it gets beautifully paradoxical. You've been taught that commitment is a limitation, a cage, a sacrifice of freedom. But what if the opposite is true? What if commitment is the condition of freedom? Think about a jazz musician. Dizzy Gillespie, John Coltrane. They could play anything, any note, any rhythm, total freedom. But genius doesn't emerge from total freedom. Genius emerges from constraint. The 12-tone scale, the tempo, the structure of the song. Within those constraints, they find infinite creativity. Same with poetry. A sonnet has 14 lines, specific meter, a rhyme scheme, and within that rigid structure, Shakespeare, Neruda, Octavio Paz. Commitment is the structure within which true intimacy becomes possible. Because you can't be truly vulnerable with someone who might leave tomorrow. You can't risk showing your ugliest self to someone who's keeping one foot out the door. But when you know, when you've both decided that this is the relationship you're building together, then you can stop performing, stop auditioning, stop trying to be worthy. You can be real. And that realness, that depth, that freedom to be fully seen, that only emerges through the constraint of commitment.
Isn't that the greatest irony? We chase freedom in limitless options, but we only find it in the one option we choose to limit ourselves to.
You show up with coffee.
All right, we're in. The code is cracked, the vault is open, and here's what we're stealing. Revelation 1. Love is a practice, not a possession. You cannot have love. You can only do love. This is not semantics. This is the entire game. The moment you think love is something you possess, a feeling you've captured, you become its prisoner. Because feelings leave, they ebb, they hide. But if love is a practice, a series of choices, actions, rituals, then you can do it even when you don't feel it. You can choose patience when anger rises. You can choose curiosity when judgment whispers. You can choose presence when distraction beckons. These are not feelings, these are practices, and practices compound. One patient response becomes a habit of patience. One curious question becomes a culture of openness. One present moment becomes a lifetime of intimacy. The Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh said, "To love without knowing how to love wounds the person we love." So learn how to love. Study it like you'd study a language. Practice it like you'd practice an instrument. Revelation 2. The death of the feeling is the birth of the choice.
We missed the dinner reservations, burn the toast.
Here's what nobody tells you. The moment the honeymoon chemicals fade, the moment you wake up and think, I don't feel in love anymore, that's not the end. That's the beginning. That's the moment you get to choose love as a philosophy rather than accept it as a sensation. Before that moment, you weren't choosing, you were compelled. Biology was choosing for you. After that moment, every day you stay is a vote for the life you're building. That is sacred. That is the difference between infatuation and devotion. Infatuation says, I love you because of how you make me feel. Devotion says, I love you because of who I've chosen to become in your presence. Revelation 3. Commitment creates the conditions for transformation. You don't commit to someone because they're perfect. You commit to them because you're both willing to be transformed by the relationship. Here's the secret. You are not the same person you were when you met them. You won't be the same person 5 years from now. The question is not, will we change? The question is, will we change together or will we change apart? Commitment is the vow to grow in the same direction, not to stay the same, not to cling to who you were in year one, but to evolve and to do the work of re-choosing each other through each evolution. Think of it like this. You are both rivers. You're gonna flow. You're gonna carve new paths. Commitment is the decision to flow toward the same ocean. Revelation 4. The ultimate freedom is the freedom to bind yourself. They tell you freedom is keeping your options open. But here's the truth the philosophers knew. The ultimate freedom is the freedom to close options, to say, of all the lives I could live, I'm printing this one. To say, of all the people I could love, I'm building with this one.
We miss the dinner reservations, burn the toast, forget the
Kierkegaard called this the leap of faith, not because you have proof it will work, but because you commit before the proof arrives. Sartre called it radical freedom, the terrifying, exhilarating burden of choice without guarantee. You are free to bind yourself, and that binding, that choice, is the most liberating act available to human consciousness, because it ends the paralysis of infinite options. It ends the anxiety of maybe there's someone better. It ends the performance of auditioning for love, and it begins the actual work of building something that outlasts feelings. This is the vault. This is the treasure, not the gold of emotions, the blueprint of how to be free.
All right, you've got the philosophy. Now let's get practical, because wisdom without practice is just entertainment. I'm going to give you 3 rituals, 3 practices you can implement today to alchemize your relationship from feeling dependent to choice-driven. Ritual 1. The daily rechoice. Every morning for 30 seconds, I want you to do this. Stand in front of a mirror or sit quietly and consciously re-choose your partner. Not because you feel like it, not because it's easy, because it aligns with your values. Say this out loud or internally. Today I choose name, not because my feelings demand it, but because my values direct it. I choose patience over reactivity. I choose curiosity over assumption. I choose growth over comfort. I recommit not to who they were yesterday, but to who we are both becoming. 30 seconds every day. You are retraining your brain to see commitment as an active choice, not a passive state. This is neuroplasticity in action. Ritual 2. The gratitude inversion. When we've been with someone for years, we stop seeing them. We see their habits, their flaws, the ways they annoy us. This ritual flips the script. Once a week, I recommend Sunday evenings, write down 3 things your partner did that week that you didn't thank them for. Not grand gestures, small things. They made coffee without being asked. They listened to your rant about work. They texted you a meme that made you laugh. Write them down. Then, here's the key, tell them. Not in a performative way, not I'm doing my gratitude exercise on you, just, hey, I noticed you did this, thank you. Why does this work? Because your brain is wired for negativity bias. It's designed to spot threats, problems, deficits. This ritual rewires you to spot evidence of care. And here's the beautiful part. What you appreciate appreciates. The more you notice their care, the more they'll care. Ritual 3. The philosophical check-in. Once a month, sit down together, no phones, no distractions, and answer these 3 questions. 1. What did I choose this month that honored our relationship? 2. What did I choose that hurt our relationship? 3. What will I choose differently next month? This is not therapy. This is philosophy in action. You're not processing feelings, you're auditing your choices. And here's the rule: no defending, no explaining away. Just witness each other's answers, acknowledge them. Because the goal is not to be perfect, the goal is to be conscious, to move from unconscious reaction to deliberate creation. Bonus ritual: the freedom sphere practice. And finally, this one's for you, alone. Once a week, ask yourself, if I removed all feelings from the equation, all the butterflies, all the irritation, all the fear, all the longing, would I still choose this person based purely on who they are and who I want to become? If the answer is yes, you're building on solid ground. If the answer is no, then you have information, not to panic, but to act. Maybe it means having a hard conversation. Maybe it means couples counseling. Maybe it means admitting you're staying out of fear, not choice. But you can't make a wise choice until you see clearly, and you can't see clearly through the fog of feeling. This practice is the clearing.
Let me tell you what's at stake here, because this isn't just about your relationship, it's about the world we're creating. We live in the age of infinite scroll, infinite swipes, infinite options. We've been sold the lie that freedom means more choice, but more choice just means more paralysis, more anxiety, more what if. The divorce rate climbs, loneliness epidemics spread. People in their 70s tell researchers they regret not committing earlier, not choosing someone and building with them, instead of endlessly searching for the perfect match. And the next generation? They're watching. They're watching you swipe. They're watching you leave when it gets hard. They're watching you worship feelings and abandon commitment. And they're learning that love is conditional, that people are replaceable, that when the chemicals fade, you trade up. Is that the legacy you want to leave? Or do you want to show them something different? Do you want to show them that real love is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of choice through difficulty? Do you want to model that commitment is not a cage, but a canvas, and that you have the brush? Imagine a world where people choose partners based on values, not just chemistry, where they stay not because they're trapped, but because they've decided, where they practice love as a discipline, like meditation, like martial arts, like any skill worth mastering. Imagine relationships that don't end at the first conflict, but deepen because of the conflict. Imagine intimacy that doesn't require butterflies, but creates meaning. That world doesn't appear magically. You build it, one choice at a time, and it starts with you, today, right now. The generational choice. Your great-grandparents, they likely didn't marry for love, at least not the way we define it. They married for survival, for family, for practical alliance, and yet many of them built love over decades, through wars and depressions and losses and joys, not because the feelings carried them, but because the commitment gave them the container to pour themselves into. What if we combined the best of both worlds? The freedom to choose who we partner with, something our ancestors didn't always have, plus the wisdom to commit as a philosophical practice, something we've forgotten. That's the synthesis. That's the evolution. That's the blueprint for love in the 21st century. And you are the architect.
Be my Valentine.
at the end of the heist. The vault is cracked. The treasure is in your hands. But here's the thing about heists. The job isn't done until you get away. And you don't get away alone. If this resonated, if you felt something shift, if you saw the code hidden in plain sight, I need you to do 3 things. 1, subscribe. Hit that button. Because this channel, the Freedom Sphere, we're just getting started. We've got heists planned on consciousness, on death, on time, on power, on every vault they don't want you to open. And you're part of the crew now. 2, share this. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Someone stuck in the tyranny of feelings. Someone who thinks love is something that happens to them instead of something they choose. Because wisdom hoarded is wisdom wasted. Liberation is collaborative. 3, practice. Don't just consume this, embody it. Choose the daily rechoice. Start the gratitude inversion. Have the philosophical check-in. Philosophy without practice is pornography. It's entertaining, but it doesn't change your life. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. You are not a hostage to your feelings. You are not a victim of chemistry. You are not waiting for the universe to deliver the one. You are the author, the architect, the master of the heist. And love, real love, the kind that lasts, the kind that transforms, the kind that builds legacies, that love is a choice, a practice, a philosophy. And you get to choose it today, tomorrow, every day. Welcome to the Freedom Sphere. This is where we stop falling and start building. I'll see you in the next heist. Now go, choose someone, choose yourself, choose consciousness, and print the reality you want to live in.